The U.S. puts H-20 export curbs on Nvidia because the Chinese Communist Party has already advised companies not to buy these chips. And maybe a little bit differently than how things work in the U.S., when the Chinese Communist Party advises you to do something...
Our company significantly. And so we're going to continue to make significant effort to optimize our products that are compliant with the regulations and continue to serve the Chinese market.
America is ringing the bell, but is no longer sure if anyone will hear her. And China simply closes its eyes and continues building ships. While you're listening to this video, somewhere in Shanghai, another container ship the length of a football field is being launched into the water. And it's not just a chunk of steel riding the waves, it's a symbol of power. Because it is within these hulls, in these holds, and under these flags that the control over the world, which we once believed belonged to America, is now hidden. America decides to strike. Trump's new plan, to prevent Chinese vessels from entering U.S. ports without leaving behind tens of millions of dollars. This isn't a subtle hint. It's a direct attack on the heart of global logistics. China responds harshly, but now it's about much more than just trade tariffs. The model of the world order is at stake. Think about it. 90% of everything you use comes by sea. But who controls these seas? China. Not as a figure of speech, but literally. More than 60% of all new ships in the world are built in Chinese shipyards. Containers? Chinese. Cranes in U.S. port? In 8 out of 10 cases, made in China. It turns out that even when goods go to the U.S., they travel on routes built, financed, and managed by Beijing. This is no longer trade. This is infrastructural dependence. When Trump, in the year 2025, announced new tariffs, up to $3,500,000 for each entry of a Chinese vessel, it sounded like an ultimatum. But what's the point if the U.S. has almost no ships of its own? Shipbuilding in America has died out, approximately 50 ships a year versus 1,000 from China. And even those that exist cannot compete. China subsidizes its shipyards, keeps prices low, even at a loss. This is not an economic mistake, it's a strategy. By controlling the ships, China controls the goods. And in case of a crisis, the resources, fuel, logistics, and even military supplies. Control over the world begins with ships. And America suddenly realized that it is now on the catching up side of the game. And now the most interesting part, even if American businessmen want to bypass these tariffs, they simply have no alternatives. Chinese vessels are the only ones capable of sustaining the volume of deliveries. And that is a trap. But China's response was not limited to words. It struck the most vulnerable point, America's allies. Panama, the canal through which millions of tons of American cargo pass. A Chinese operator unexpectedly sells a stake to an American consortium. The deal is favorable for Washington, but inside China, it was seen as a betrayal. What does Beijing do? It sends delegations, launches investigations, threatens banks, pressures Central American countries. Ports are no longer just ports. They are front lines in a new war. But that's not all. A separate crisis has erupted in the technology sector. Heavy artillery is now in play. Nvidia, the company that produces chips powering artificial intelligence, drones, missiles, and everything tied to the future. American sanctions are cutting off its access to China. A loss of $22 billion annually. A staggering blow. And what do we see? Nvidia's CEO, Jensen Huang, suddenly appears in Beijing. He's not greeted by just any business representatives, but by China's vice premier himself and the head of DeepPSK, China's rival to OpenAI. Symbolic? More than that. This is no longer just a visit. It's a signal, perhaps a desperate one, or perhaps a calculated move. American officials are furious. Suspicions arise that Nvidia deliberately circumvented restrictions. Suspicions that they are no longer on Washington's side. But the greatest fear lies elsewhere. It's the fear that China, having learned to work even with old chips, is now creating its own version of the H-20. And not just creating it, mass-producing it. Perhaps the United States itself accelerated China's technological maturation. They imposed bans. China found a way to build its own, faster and cheaper. The scenario feared in the Pentagon has begun to unfold. Now China is no longer merely catching up. It's racing ahead. And it's not certain whether America still has a chance to regain the initiative. Because today it's not about tariffs, not about chips, not about cranes in a port. This is a battle over who will write the rules of the global game. Who will dictate the routes? Who will control the supply chains? Who will impose blockades? This is no longer economic competition. This is a struggle for dominance in the 21st century. And if the United States loses, it will lose not just billions. It will lose control. It will lose its ability to influence. It will lose what gave it power for the past 70 years, infrastructural leadership. So there remains only one question. Has China already won? Or is America still capable of fighting back? And this is not a question for politicians. It's a question for everyone. For companies, for investors, for those who still believe that the world order is unshakable. Perhaps it's time to admit, we are living in an era of global upheaval. And this upheaval is happening right now. Share your thoughts. Do you believe the United States can still regain control? Or is it already too late?